Jamming with History. Chapter 10. Part of Your World. Almost 3 weeks passed since then. When Roman's parents were home around the time he got picked up or dropped off, they made a point to wave at Virgil either from the doorway or the window. They didn't comment on Roman's stories about Virgil's antics with his friends, or about his training with Remy, but Roman could tell they were still worried. But speaking of Remy's training, that was paying off pretty well. Roman was feeling quite good. Remy suggested maybe they could do some training in the swimming pool next time. Roman was actually feeling comfortable enough without his body looked now to wear swim trunks around the swim team without getting a complex comparing himself to them. So tomorrow he was going to be swimming. He was kind of curious how Remy would go about it. In other news, the project was coming along nicely. Well, I think we have way more information than we need at this point. Guess the research stage is over, Virgil mused as he copied the last source down and closed the book. Yeah, I think we could fill an hour with this stuff, Roman sighed as he looked at the massive word count on their Google Docs file. They were in the library. The youth house had been nice the first 2 meetings, but between Thomas kinda trying to play matchmaker for his little brother, which was honestly so cute, and other activities being planned, Roman and Virgil both found it best to move their operations to the library, especially since it would make research easier during their meetings. So, your place or mine? Virgil wondered as he started collecting his things. Roman was surprised by the question. Saturday, your place or mine? Virgil repeated. I'd suggested youth house again, but Saturdays they have full house. Besides, I think we have given your parents enough time to get used to me. It's time to ruffle their feathers again, he winked. And it's your birthday next week, right? Might wanna do this before the press starts getting involved and stuff. Roman nodded. Yeah, I mean, you are right. Is your place okay with you? He wasn't entirely comfortable with Virgil seeing the inside of his house or his room without knowing how it compared to his own living situations, and he was too embarrassed to ask. He wanted to be sensitive about the whole deal. Virgil nodded. Okay. Fair warning. Thomas is terrible at keeping secrets and my parents are convinced that we are at least close to becoming boyfriends and I'm just being shy about it. First serious relationship and all that. Don't let them intimidate you. They are not so scary. Just... You'll see, Virgil finished with a dismissive wave as he dug beneath the table to find a pen he was apparently missing. Looking forward to it, Roman smiled. He was. He had never been invited over to someone's place before, not even by his friends. They'd always hung out outside, and previous project partners had stuck to libraries and only been interested in going over to his place, which he was uncomfortable with. Virgil was the first one to suggest inviting him into his house. So, I never asked, did you suggest Greek mythology so you could try to best me in the argument while also doing homework? Virgil wondered with a teasing grin. Roman shrugged. It was just kind of on my mind. Why, did you accept it so you could try to win? Virgil laughed. Nah, it was on my mind too, I guess, he agreed. Roman had wondered how things would change between him and Virgil after learning that they'd known each other for years. And the answer was, not much really. There was no more awkwardness, and their inside jokes carried over into real life now. But other than that, the banter was similar. They hadn't stopped their debates online. They just joked about it when they saw one another. Things like, nice one, charming, but you are going to eat those words tonight. Or, blasphemy, you can expect a strongly worded rebuttal from that meat Cherner bugger. Just you wait. It was fun. They both kept it fun. Roman didn't think too much about any early late-night complaints he recalled reading and worrying about. Messages that made him try his hardest to make a funny post, a cartoon or a clever wordplay, or a completely ridiculous theory to cheer him up. It had been years ago, middle school. But Roman was not going to make Virgil talk about what happened if he wasn't bringing it up himself. Likewise, Virgil wasn't bringing up any of the rambles Roman had posted after bad experience with the press, his parents, or their clients, or just life in general. There was something Roman was curious about. Virgil, why is one of your brother's characters named after me? Thomas's most popular YouTube series was called Sendersides. It was an interesting premise. The main character talked about his day-to-day struggles with aspects of his personality. The one representing creativity was named Roman. Coincidence? Roman would think so, but considering that there was a character named after Virgil and the others were all named after their uncles and Mr. J, it seemed very unlikely. Well, back in middle school, when Thomas was first creating the characters, Roman thought back to that. The site came to be during their final year at middle school, according to the publishing dates. He found me laughing at one of your posts. He asked me what I was watching, and I talked about my online friend Prinxiety. And so the prince was born. And then when I got to high school and Thomas was looking for names, he visited his friend, your director, during a rehearsal, and he saw a young, promising actor that embodied that same energy. And so he borrowed your name. It was a perfect fit for the character, and it went well with the ones he picked out. And that's how your name ended up in my brother's self-help web series, he explained as they left the library. He must love that Princey and I are the same person. Virgil let out a laugh. He does not know, and you are not telling him, or my parents. They have dubbed Princey my internet boyfriend, and you already know Thomas is rooting for us to be real-life boyfriends. He's going to think we are soulmates or something, he chuckled as he took out their jackets and helmets, exchanged them for their bags, closed the compartment, and helped Roman into his jacket. It was kind of a joke between them. Since finding out Roman was Princey, Virgil had taken to treating him as royalty on occasion, holding doors open for him, bowing, pulling up his chair, taking his coat and crowning him, etc. He rolled his eyes, but he kind of found it great that Virgil saw no problem in being so playful in public. Besides, gentleman Virgil was kind of cute. Okay, maybe he was getting kind of a real crush on Virgil. He'd always thought he was attractive. He'd never denied that. But now that he knew him, he was still extremely attractive. But more than that, he was fun and genuine and... So yeah, there was some kind of crush going on. But Roman was not going to bring it up until at least after the prank had ended. If it lasted that long, crushes could blow over after all. It wasn't worth making this confusing. Besides, while his parents might say they'd support him no matter who he found himself passionate about, he doubted they were eager to have Virgil to be his coming-out crush, so to speak. And honestly, Virgil was already stuck with his parents' judgments as his friend. He'd have to see how that will turn out first before putting more pressure on him for something that might not even last. And got on paranoia behind Virgil. Ready? Virgil checked. He always made sure Roman was comfortable before taking up. Double-checked if his teasing didn't hurt his feelings. Made sure this joke wasn't making life harder on him. That Roman still wanted to spend time with him. Still wanted to train with Remy. Can you really blame Roman for having a crush on someone so considerate? Yeah, he confirmed, and off they went. Once home, he hurried up the stairs to find his swim trunks and everything else he'd need for swimming training with Remy tomorrow, murmuring his lines for the play under his breath as he did so, occasionally pausing to act out the scene a little bit. He had been casted as his navy, as he predicted, but his director was impressed with his rendition of enough. Said that if Roman was up for it, the local community college was doing Beauty and the Beast with their junior group over the summer. They'd hold auditions next weekend, and according to his director, he just might be able to get the role of Beast. Another protagonist, but one with much more raw edges to it. Roman was kind of excited. When he told his friends they'd be supportive and assured him that he'd get a part, no problem. Virgil said that he could try out, and maybe he'd get a part, and maybe he wouldn't. But if he didn't do it, then he'd never know. And Roman appreciated that honesty. Virgil was right. Worst thing that could happen was not getting the part he was hoping for. And he could handle being ensemble for once. In fact, it would be an interesting experience. Ensemble did a whole lot more dancing and singing in general, so it was an interesting position to be in for a change. He'd aimed for ensemble in a couple of plays in the past, but he ended up getting a lead role anyway. Not that he'd minded. He loved the stage, and every minute he could spend there was great, and he never minded standing in the spotlight. He just liked to challenge himself, that's all. So yeah, he'd be one of the townspeople or the castle staff. Though Beast or Gaston would be an interesting role too. He'd have to wait and see. First, he had to get through Remy's swimming practice and the meeting with Virgil's family. His parents got home pretty late at night, which wasn't that normal. When you run a company, some nights are going to run late, no matter what. Roman, you didn't need to stay up to greet us, his mother smiled warmly as she gave him a kiss goodnight. I wanted to. Also, I thought I should tell you now that I'll be going to Virgil Saturday to work on a project, he explained before giving his father a kiss goodnight as well. He pulled back and noticed that his parents had stiffened. Is there a problem? He asked confused. No, no problem. You've never been over to anyone's house before, his mother pointed out. And Roman could tell that she was sincerely put out of her comfort zone by this. This was new territory, and his parents had not been prepared. Roman shrugged. Yeah, Virgil doesn't really get intimidated as easily as other people, I guess, he reasoned. Intimidated? His mother asked, baffled and mildly offended. Everyone at schools know you guys are, he gestured wildly between his parents. You. I guess they assume I'm not allowed, or that I would feel pity for them if their houses aren't as big as mine, or something ridiculous like that. His parents exchanged a look. Oh, well then. His mother was at a loss of what to say. We should make sure you bring something to the Sanders household as a thank you for their hospitality, his father jumps in. His mother clapped her hands, back in her element. Oh yes, absolutely. Back when I was little, my mother would never let me go to my friends without something for the parents, especially when they were new friends, she mused. We'll arrange something for you to bring by Saturday. Don't you worry. Now off to bed. You have your training tomorrow, right? Better be well rested, she insisted. Roman chuckled. Maybe it was the long day that made them less suspicious, or maybe his parents had truly meant that they would trust him. He'd find out soon. School went as it usually did. Virgil picked him up. Roman's parents were out early this morning, so there was no one keeping a close eye on them. They exchanged some banter as Roman secured his helmet and zipped up his jacket. Once at school, Virgil escorted Roman to his first 2 classes before bidding him goodbye. The rest of the day, some of his former tormentors gave him the stink eye, but Roman didn't care. In a few months, they'd have no power over him with or without Virgil's protection. Besides, he felt like he could maybe stand his ground in a one-on-one with most of them by now. Though maybe that was a bit overconfident of him. Rehearsal went well, though he had to work on his tempo on stage. Navy's reps were fast and he was not used to that, but he got the spirit down pretty well, so that was good. Soon he and Virgil arrived at the club, and Virgil hurried to meet his team inside. He was always on the brim of being late, it seemed. Ah, my little merman, ready to be part of Virgil's world? Remy wondered as he greeted Roman. As I'll ever be, Roman shrugged, trying not to be obvious about his crush. Remy liked to tease him with it. Not that he'd confided in him or anything. Remy just knew. The way he knew when Roman could do another set and when he was genuinely spent. Alright then, go get changed. I'll meet you at the pool. When Roman left the changing rooms and walked into the swimming pool area, he made a point of not looking towards where he knew Virgil and his team were training, suddenly not sure how he would compare. Besides, seeing Virgil train up close was probably too much of a gay panic for him to handle, though he wouldn't be able to see much without his glasses right now. Come on, walk like a prince, not a pauper, Remy reminded him. The best part about his trainer? He made sure to build up Roman's confidence, not just his muscles or stamina. Roman was confident on stage and with his friends, but beyond that, he often felt very fragile. But with the help of Remy, and Virgil too if I was honest, that had gotten a lot better, and so he imagined himself on a runway. The world was watching and it was in awe. He was graceful, powerful, handsome. There was nothing to question, no room for second thoughts. That's more like it, Remus praised, and Roman arrived next to him. Let's go for a swim to start with. Roman had gotten a lot more respect for Virgil and his team this training. Swimming was hard, at least when you were trying to be fast and stuff. Remy was making Roman dive for practice dummies they used to train lifeguards. Save your prince, he said. The dolls were heavy. The Roman didn't really notice that until he tried to get them out of the water. When he was pushing out the last one, he suddenly got help. First the door was pulled out, and then he was offered a hand and pulled up by Virgil. Hi, but your training isn't over. What are you doing here? He wondered as he tried to focus on Virgil's face and getting out of the pool. Well, the others are doing penalty laps for getting distracted by a guppy, so I get a break, he smiled. Guppy? Roman wondered. Or name for beginning swimmers. Us seasoned swimmers call ourselves sharks, he grinned. Roman blushed. He was the guppy. Virgil's team had been looking at him. You did good, though, Virgil assured him. That surprised Roman. Wait, but I thought you weren't looking. That was why Virgil wasn't being punished right now, right? I wasn't distracted. I got in when I was supposed to and I did the laps the way I was told. But I did see how Remy was drilling you. I gotta say, I'm impressed. You listen better to Remy than some of my teammates listen to Coach, he praised. And it's paying off, he added with a wink. Roman looked down in an attempt to hide his blush, but that is when he noticed it. The skin around Virgil's throat was colored differently from the rest. Oh, yeah, I usually cover that up with makeup. Virgil chuckles, a bit uncomfortable as he lays his hand on the slightly darker skin. It always gets people double-checking to see if it's a bruise. It's not, clearly, but the stares get really annoying. Worse is when they don't take a second look and yell at my folks for it. Virgil tries to shrug it off, but he's clearly uncomfortable. I'm sorry. Between you and Thomas, I can't imagine your parents are anything short of amazing. They shouldn't have to deal with that. And you shouldn't either. Was this the worst Virgil mentioned when they talked about gossipers? Had someone taken their good intentions meddling too far? He didn't dare ask. Thanks, Virgil smiled. Then he gave Roman a pat on his shoulder. Keep up the good work. I'm going back before Coach decides to make me do some penalty laps after all. Roman didn't say anything as Virgil turned and walked away. He could take a hint. Alright, Siren, ready to go scavenging in a sunken ship? Remy grinned. Roman looked down and found that Remy had set up a massive obstacle course for him to get through. When they were done, Roman wasn't sure if he preferred the gym or the pool. Remy could make him hurt all over regardless. He thought he'd been sore all over before, but it turned out they were still muscles Remy hadn't pushed to their limit yet. Roman was waiting outside and trying to stretch in hopes of reducing tomorrow's torment. He wanted to be somewhat comfortable when meeting Virgil's family. Remy could joke all he wanted about today, but tomorrow was the day Roman got to be part of Virgil's world, and he was very curious to see what that world looked like.